Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy that you took time to be with us today. Appreciate your effort and attentiveness. If you've got a question, it's time for Garden Questions and Answers. Send it on over to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to give us a call, you can certainly do that at 1-800-927-SHOW. That's 1-800-927-7469. Had a number of questions come in. We'll see what we can get through to the top of the hour. Let's see here. Here we go. I have one pickling cucumber ready that I need to harvest before it turns yellow. How can I store it longer until I have enough to make pickles?
Well, so cucumbers only last about a week or so before starting to slime or mold or
get soft.
Get soft or not good. So it's best just to eat it, right away. And then when you get some that are, when they start to produce more, then you can start pickling the cucumbers, but you have to kind of be patient and wait and consume what you can now, and then when you have the larger harvest, then you can do something with it.
Well, and I don't know if it's a misconception, but pickling cucumbers, we can only use those for pickles. You can eat a pickling cucumber.
Yeah.
It's not it has the same material in it as a straight age or a burpless cucumber.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. And this is the advantage of mass planting, so you can get as much. If you're going to be in that canning realm, that's why you do indeterminate tomatoes, or some people will do all determinate, have one big harvest, and that's when they process. Same thing with cucumbers. You plant a whole lot, and then you will consistently get enough to process. Now, on the other hand, like you said, the cucumbers don't last long. If you have beets you can put in the crisper, and they'll last for a long time before they get soft. So you could, that's a different story there.
Yeah, but some people don't like beets, so
roasted beets and pickled beets and beets, money beets.
I have heirloom carrots. They're about 6 to 7 inches top growth. Any idea when they're ready to pick? They've been in the ground for about 1 month and a half. I pulled one up, but it was too small.
Month and a half would approximately be about 45 to 50 days. Typical carrots will take between 60 and 80 days to reach maturity. Most times you are going to see an indication of the carrot shoulders pushing up out of the ground. And you'll see a diameter of, a dime or a quarter size diameter. That would be the time in which you could start sampling. Now, that would be the time in which you could start sampling. Now, the longer you leave the carrot in the ground, that doesn't mean, if I leave it in for 3 months or 4 months, it will get extremely woody. And there's a certain point of the return of no investment where you leave it in the ground, and you might as well leave it in the ground for the whole winter, because then it will start growing again next spring. And the carrot is a biennial in which it will produce a seed pod. Now, it looks very similar to, Queen of Lace? In the wild, I think that's the right term.
Queen Anne's lace.
Queen Anne's lace.
Kinda, yeah.
When in the flowering stage,
yeah, that's true.
You would not know the difference.
Yeah,
unless you know that this is where carrots were, and then you could save the seeds. But bigger isn't always better. You want to wait until it gets a certain size, and then harvest all of them, assuming that you have spaced out properly to give the proper amount of growth there. All right, what's the next question we have here? I accidentally bought ground soil. Can I use it in my potted plants?
Yeah, you can use in-ground soil for potted plants. It could be heavier and more compacted. So because of how it's made, produced, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times in-ground soil is a little bit denser.
If you're going to try to mitigate it into a potting soil consistency, go buy a bag of potting soil, because by the time you buy the perlite or the vermiculite or the cocoa coir and mix compost in with it, you're already expended the amount of what a bag of potting soil would be. So just chalk this one up to and use that in dump it in your raised bed or your garden or wherever you're going to plant your next thing at, work it in the soil and buy your bag of potting soil and be done with it. I have harvested early potatoes. Can I plant more this fall?
Yeah. So depending where you are, depending on the variety of potatoes, it could take 90 to 120 days.
Yep.
So you could plant, if you know that you have 90-day potatoes, you can definitely plant those. If you're not sure, you could always harvest them right before
baby potatoes.
Yeah, baby potatoes or new potatoes or whatever you want to call them. It's not going to be a situation where it's like you have to wait the entire time. So say that, we have one of these, it seems like our fall to summer, our summer is spilling into fall transitioning a lot later. So it's possible that you could get 90 to 120 days out of those potatoes. So I definitely would, if I had harvested my potatoes at this point, I would put whatever into the ground.
I would not replant in the same place in which you harvested those
Right.
potatoes, because of there's diseases
Potatoes, yeah.
have issues. Now, whenever some potatoes flower, others do not. The potatoes typically flower around the 70-day mark in most instances, or about 10 weeks. At that point, you could harvest your potatoes. They're going to be smaller. To get the maximum out of your potatoes, you want to wait until the tops begin to die off. You don't have to wait until they're completely dead and you have to find the trench in which the potatoes were planted, but that's an indication. Also, you don't have to buy seed, quote unquote, potatoes. You can plant potatoes that are sprouting right now in many of our cupboards. You can cut it if it's bigger than a medium-sized chicken egg. Cut it to where you have at least 2 eyes on the potato. Plant it 6 inches deep, because they start They start getting less tasty. They don't have a very good taste after they start sprouting, because they're converting their energy into reproduction rather than a storage mechanism, because of how the potato is designed. So put them in the ground and have at it.
Absolutely. So then we also have when is the best time to harvest my garlic scapes? So if this is your first time planting garlic, you want to make sure your garlic is going to produce scapes. So that would be for the hardneck varieties.
Right.
And so you'll know, because you'll get this like sprout. I don't know if you want to call it a sprout. We'll call it a sprout. That kind of curls around
an extended growth out of the center stem of the plant.
Yeah, so it curls around, and then it kind of grows this little, like, when you look at the end of it, it looks like a little seed pod kind of thing. I guess that's probably the best way to describe it. And then what will happen is when you start to see those form, is when you want to harvest them. And you just cut them right at the junction as to where they're coming out of the plant.
All right, first time growing tomatoes here. What do I cut off? What do I leave? I have 2 tomatoes growing on the bottom portion of a bunch of flowers at the top. Thank you. Well, first of all, you want to, on tomatoes. Tomatoes are one of these things in which there's a million different ways in which you can go about doing this. However, on a tomato, there's suckers, which is extended growths out of the junction of a limb and the stem. You want to trim the lower 6 inches of the plant. That's the first thing. To prevent or reduce the amount of splash up of soil onto your leaves. Soil has many bad things in it. Though it's a very beneficial and lifeblood of our gardens, it has a lot of diseases in it. It also contains bad bacteria called early blight, and that early blight, or soil splashing up on the leaves, can cause problems for your tomato plant. Progressively works up the plant, and by the end of the season, it is dead with fruit on it. So by cutting or trimming the lower 6 to 8 inches of leaves from the stalk, leave the stalk alone. If you cut the stalk, the plant's dead. And opening up that bottom, and anything in the canopy that could potentially be hanging down to get that splash up of soil, trim that. You're not going to hurt the plant. This is just a way in which to help the plant along. So that's step 1 by trimming it out. You can be done with that, or you can continue on with step 2 and 3. If you've already got tomatoes in the ground, that's fine. You can do this. Add a handful of yellow whole grain cornmeal. Yellow whole grain cornmeal contains a beneficial bacteria called trichoderma. Trichoderma fights the bad bacteria. Now, you don't have to apply this every time you water. Just plant the tomato, and if the tomato is already planted, just go along and just sprinkle a handful around the base of the plant. Then you can mulch pine straw, shredded leaves, chemical-free, seed-free, dry grass clippings, organic or chemical-free straw, shredded paper, whatever you can do in order to cover the soil. You're going to have that whole grain cornmeal. You're going to have mulch. You've trimmed the bottom of your tomato plants. By doing this, you are going to see a tremendous increase of plant health and productivity. You got to water as well. So we've done this for going on 10 years now, and always have had successful green tomatoes all the way up to the day of frost that kills them. Prior to that, our tomatoes looked like probably many of yours at the end of the season. Stem and fruit and all the leaves are dead, and typically and most likely the plant is dead too, because all the leaves are gone and it can't photosynthesize, so it basically choked itself out or suffocated because it didn't have the available leaf structure in order to grow. Anything to add there? Oh, you want to support your tomatoes if you haven't got them.
I was just going to say you want to make sure you support them, not just by telling them nice, kind words about themselves to them. You want to use like cages or stakes or whatever it may be to get them off the ground. This will help. It will help get you a better harvest, and it'll also help for when you want to pick the tomatoes, and then also for any pests, diseases, whatever. You can view that easily, and a lot of times when they're on the ground, they're more susceptible to pests or rot or what have you. This will help prevent that.
Well, with that being said, we are at the time of the program where we discuss what we learned today.
So, what we learned today.
What did you learn? Did you learn something today?
I did learn. I didn't know this, and I feel like I should know this. That ticks, they prefer shade. They don't like full sun. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What did you learn?
That's ground beetles, or I didn't realize ground beetles was as important to the ecosystem of your garden as they are.
Yeah.
By eating a lot of bugs and controlling a lot of things under cover items.
It's kind of interesting that beetles eat other beetles. That's like kind of cannibalistic.
Well, in some degree.
And ladybugs. I mean, you know that they go to town on the aphids.
Oh, look how pretty that ladybug is.
There's eating aphids.
Even aphids, yeah. What we learned today is brought to you by Honey Bee Healthy.
Whether you're a gardener, a bee hobbyist, or a professional beekeeper, Honey Bee Healthy Inc. has the products to help you maintain a healthy hive and thriving garden. For more information on how to use Honey Bee Healthy in your garden, visit honeybeehealthy.com.